evening and welcome to the Town of Rockland Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPSRockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements. Doug?
Sure, Mike. I'll just read this quickly, but the town clerk will be up in a minute for her public hearing, and she can explain it in more depth. But I did want to print on the agenda at her request that nomination papers for the annual town election will be available tomorrow, January 4th. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda, minutes for 12:14 and 12:20. We're actually going to bypass the meeting minutes for 12:14, as both myself and Tiffany were not in attendance. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for 12:20, 22.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, public hearing. Town Clerk Liza Landy, recommendation to opt out of early voting requirements for local town hall election per Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Section 25B. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public.
I have a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Roll call vote. Tiffany?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And myself?
Thank you.
Thank you. Liza, welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
How are you?
I apologize that I didn't get some notes into your booklets this week. Today's my first day back from having COVID, so I appreciate your patience. And I am here today because the Votes Act of 22 has changed the laws. I was here before you previously to ask for you to approve election workers, various other things, and now I'm back again with the new law changes. And I do have two things that I'd like to give each of you, that I apologize. They did make it a little more confusing this year, Donna. I know you're not surprised.
Nope. Thank you.
So I had several people ask me questions as to why I wanted to opt out. So as you can see here from the state, vote by mail is required unless I come before this board on a hearing 45 days before the election to opt out. And the reason that I would like to opt out is I don't feel that the numbers for an annual town election are there to quantify having the expense and the undue workload that comes with it. People can still absentee vote. I'm not asking you to eliminate that, nor can I. I'm just asking that as the law reads, we can opt out of vote by mail. And you'll see down in the second section that in-person early voting is not required. People can opt in for it, but obviously I would like to keep it status quo.
Now, the in-person early voting is not required only for local elections.
Correct. For every other election, it is required.
Just want to put that out there. Anybody have any questions for Liza? Any comments?
Actually, Liza, if you could please just elaborate on the workload that is required in general for early and whatnot, because I know you have a very small department. I know that it's been a lot, but could you just elaborate on that?
Of course. So, unfortunately, elections season, regardless if it's primary or a general or a state or town, it consumes all the office every day. So it's difficult to run an election and run your office at the same time because you're solely focused on the election only. So when a ballot request comes in, we then have to take the request, make sure they're a registered voter, input it into the state system, manually get the ballot, because it's a state ballot, that they're not put together, so we have to manually put the ballot, the instruction, the return envelope together, mail it out, wait for it to come back, put it back into the computer system. So one town clerk, Donna, as you know, they all have this great way of sending you out useless information, sent out this graph, and it takes about 8 minutes per ballot to process. So times that, times however many, it's just time consuming.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I hope did I say that? Did I clarify that?
Made sense.
Okay.
I did, thank you.
Anybody in the public have any questions as it pertains to the in-person early voting? Mr.
What would be the
Callahan?
actual savings?
Oh, no.
What would be, I'm Jerry Callahan, what would be the actual savings from opting out of the town? What,
Do we have a dollar amount?
So I can give you, it would be 35 hours. I would need to have somebody in the, in to help me to process, and then I would, need to have somebody who knows what they're doing. So if I hire a person who's doing elections, I would want to reach out to my election workers first, because they know what is expected. So if I had to say, I would say 35 hours of work, because I would need an extra person,
May I make a point?
of course.
You also have to include the postage.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Because you
To me,
have
that
to-
was assumed, thank
You
you.
have to do the postage to get it out, the postage to get it back.
Yes,
And they have the option to come into town hall and vote by absentee.
yes.
So there are options available to them.
Oh.
It's simply not sent out to everyone. And you have 12,000 voters in town.
Correct. And the only other thing that I wanted to point out, Mike, is with this new law change, they are implementing with this company called Democracy Live. For anybody who is blind and or handicapped, they can do their ballot by email. Just like a UOCAVA would, Donna, like an overseas person. The people who meet these qualifications can do it, required for local elections effective June of 2022. We're now working with this company called Democracy Live, that anybody who meets that criteria can do their ballot by email, which is great and free.
Mr. Callahan?
so basically, the selectmen could lose a lot of potential votes without the mail-in ballots. Some people just can't make it. They got little kids, they get sick, they're too old.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Anyone who has something that does not allow them to come and vote in person, all they have to do is send a request, and it will be mailed to them. Absentees are always mailed to voters who request it. You run into, because I was there for the last election, you run into the people who don't want it mailed to their house. You're mailing it out. They're not requesting it, so they get very angry because they're getting something that they didn't ask for. And it makes the workload a lot harder, because you're dealing with mail coming in and having to do things piecemeal. You always have the option of voting absentee or coming in and voting early, because you have to work that day, you can't make it that day. So there's always that option available. There always has been. It's just a matter of when we got into COVID and the election, suddenly the state said everybody gets a postcard, everybody gets the option. So we had people, and I'm speaking from experience during the presidential election, we had people that were getting the postcard. They would send it back that they wanted their ballot, and then they'd come up and want to vote in person. So it made it a much heavier workload. The town election is typically much smaller, but people always have the right to vote. So you ensure that they can vote absentee, they can come and vote in person.
So they can vote absentee anytime.
Yeah. Yep. All they have to do is send a request.
Well,
So-
I myself, no, I voted by mail.
Mhm.
The day of the election, I was in the hospital.
Mhm.
I couldn't vote.
No, because if you had gotten it ahead of time by mail,
Oh, I voted because I did it by mail.
okay, if you're in the hospital, there's always an exception for someone. If you're within 5 days of an election, if you end up in a hospital, a family member can come and fill out the forms and take the ballot to you. So there's always that option for someone who is absolutely not able to get to the polls. Sorry, Liza.
No, I'm thankful that somebody is
I did
wording
it for a number of
Right,
years,
that's
so
what I'm
it's kind
saying,
of.
like,
M-
and that's
Mike-
why I asked Tiffany if I responded to her question, because in my head it makes sense, but.
Can I just make one clarification, or maybe ask Liza and Donna to clarify it? Because Donna mentioned the in-person early voting, but I don't think we've opted in for that,
No,
for the local.
absentee, it's absentee.
Right.
Absentee.
So absentee, yes, but in-person early, no for local. I just wanted to clarify that.
And the other thing that I would like to clarify is the state is not mailing out postcards for any local election. So somebody has to contact me regardless if it's early or absentee. So there's no postcards going out. So if you want to vote, you have to initiate it. So it would just make it easier for my office if it's just one request. Absentee, here it is, send it out. You know what I mean? There's no postcards this time.
No, I certainly appreciate your feedback, Liza, and it seems that opting out, from what I'm hearing tonight, would certainly streamline the process for your office, and that anyone who did need an absentee ballot would certainly be provided one if
Correct.
they
And anyone
asked,
who's,
so.
who's handicapped, they do have that new online feature for local elections, which is great, a great change in the law.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments in regards to the opt-out of early voting recommendation? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve the public hearing.
Motion to dissolve public hearing.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Motion and a second. Roll call vote. Selectman Needham?
Yes.
Selectman Shuttle?
Yes.
And myself. Okay. So what be the will of the board?
I think it's in the town's best interest, money-wise and personnel-wise, to opt out of the early voting. Because the option is still there,
Right.
so.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be any kind of a detriment to the residents because there are other options that they're able to take. Tiffany, any?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to opt out of early voting.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? With the roll call? Selectman Needham?
Yes.
Selectman Shortall?
Yes.
And myself, unanimous. Thank you, Liza.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liza.
Okay, next on the agenda, Board of Registrars appointments. Christine Campanile and Teresa Buffum. Christine, come on up.
Hello.
Christine, you want to just state your name and your address?
Christine Campanile. I live at 41 Rice Ave in Rockland.
Okay. Christine, what's your interest in the position of Board of Registrars?
I believe it would be helpful to the office for the convenience of me working in there daily for any the process of the registrar that come through, which is a lot. So that's why I'd like to be appointed to the position.
Okay. Anybody any questions for Christine? Any questions?
No, sorry.
Okay. And Christine, how long have you been in the office?
I've been in the office for 5 years. Worked for the town for 7.
And what was your past experience that you think you can bring to the, outside of specifically being the assistant town clerk, what past experience do you think you'd be able to apply to the Board of Registrars?
Just a little knowledge of, I had worked in the assessor's office before, got to know the residents and how the town process works for that type of position.
Okay. All right, anybody have any other questions for Christine? Okay, thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
You're all set, thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Buffum?
Good evening,
Teresa,
Mr. Chairman.
welcome. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to appear before you tonight.
Want to state your name and your address?
Teresa Buffum, 15 Condon Circle.
Okay, so same questions that I asked Christine.
Certainly.
What do you hope to bring to the, what's your interest in the Board of Registrars?
Oh, yes, certainly. In September, I'm a member of the Democratic Town Committee. In September, we had our meeting, and it was brought up that there was a vacancy, and I expressed interest in perhaps maybe applying for it, and the members on the Democratic Town Committee thought it was a good idea. So my interest is that in my younger days, I was involved a little bit more in town affairs, and I did involve myself in recounts for Jan O'Brien, for example, Representative Jan O'Brien. So I have some experience in doing recounts, and my understanding is that's an important function of the registrar to participate in recounts. So I thought I could lend some expertise there.
Okay. Tiffany, did you have a question?
Not right
No,
now.
okay. Sorry, I forgot that, I thought you asked a question last time.
Have to be consistent.
So outside of your interest and your background
Yes.
with Jan O'Brien's campaign, what other jobs have you held within the community that would make you benefit for the registrar of voters?
Well, I think I'm able to understand regulations and election laws, considering I am an attorney. So I think I can bring that to the table. I think that's pretty good qualification. Also, I was very involved with the town in my younger days. I mean, I held a lot of elected and appointed positions, as you can see on my application. So I think you can see I have a fondness for the community. So I think I could be fair and equitable when it comes to, working in the best interests of the town. And I certainly will do whatever the town clerk directs me to do, and I'll follow her instructions, no matter what Republican or Democrat, whatever she tells me to do, I certainly will do it. You have my word on that.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa.
You're
Appreciate your
welcome,
time.
sir.
Okay. Open up to the members of the board. Any thoughts, opinions?
I certainly want to thank both of you for coming tonight to, and for being willing to engage in this position, for sure.
Am I dismissed?
Yeah, you're all
Okay,
set. I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
Teresa. Donna, any thoughts?
My concern is that the Board of Registrars is always supposed to be a balance of Democrat, Republican, and in the past, we've filled in with unenrolled because we did not have 2 Democrat, 2 Republican. So my concern would be, Liza, I don't know what your political affiliation is. The town clerk always sits on the Board of Registrars. It goes with the job. But my concern would be how it's going to balance out having, we have a Democrat, we already have a Republican. If Liza is in one of those parties, we need to balance it off with someone from the other party. That's a requirement of the Board of Registrars.
So what would the case be if Liza were to be like unenrolled for?
You would need to have someone unenrolled in there to balance it out. Because when you're doing a recount, you need to make sure that each party is equally represented. So if you were doing a recount, you'd need to have 1 or 2 of Republican, 1 or 2 of Democrat. So it would be, I think that would be the catch-22.
If I may ask a question,
Absolutely.
is unenrolled considered a party?
It's,
Just out of curiosity.
it is considered, it's considered a party. It's not a major party, but it is, in this case, it would be the balance,
It's a political designation.
yeah.
Yeah. Not a party
Because-
as much as
So
it's
you
a,
enroll in an unenrolled party?
it's
You
a
enroll
political
when you
designation.
register.
It used to be called independent.
Yes, I
And
knew
then they
that.
changed it.
Independent doesn't exist anymore?
No,
No, I knew that,
no.
but that's very odd.
So that would be my only question, would be how the roles would,
So what's Liza, is she
Play
a
out.
Democrat?
I did not ask her.
That's,
I'm unenrolled,
Yep,
Oh,
Christine's unenrolled,
okay, there's
Okay.
2.
and then I have a Democrat and I have a
Yep.
Republican.
Oh, so that's balanced.
If
Christine goes
Christine
on,
was
yes.
the choice.
That would be the balance. You'd
Oh.
have a Democrat, you'd have a Republican, you'd have two unenrolled. So they're not going to be defined by their party. So they would be able to, during a recount, they would be able to be the impartial, because you have a Democrat and you have a Republican.
So where's the problem?
You just said that you're a member of the Democratic Party.
Yes, I am.
We already have a Democrat on the Board of Registrars.
Okay,
That's always been the dilemma.
okay, that's fine.
One of
Mr.
them
Callahan, sorry.
switch over to Republican?
I
Would one of them switch over to Republican?
You can't ask them to do that. You don't have the right to ask them to enroll in a party
You're
to
only
balance.
teasing, right?
No, I'm serious.
You can't ask them to switch their party.
People do it every day.
Yeah, but you can't ask.
You can't require them.
No, I'm not saying required, but if one
Well,
of them
you're
did
asking
switch.
them, in order to balance it out, you would be asking them, requiring them to put themselves in a party that they may not want to be in.
So you got unenrolled.
okay.
So you got 2 unenrolled.
So with that said, I'll entertain a motion then. Do you have a motion?
So why, so you have 2 unenrolls though?
Right, but they
One-
would be the
I
balance.
only have one right this minute.
Christine's
Right this minute,
not on the
I only
board.
have 3 and I'm looking for a 4th.
She's got
The
a
Board of
Republican.
Registrars is four members.
Right.
And it's set up that way so that you would typically have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. We haven't had for years, we were lucky to find someone who would sit on the Republican Party, or who was a member of the Republican Party. So now we have a Republican, we have a Democrat.
Yep.
So the town clerk always sits on the Board of Registrars.
Right, correct.
She's unenrolled.
Right.
So you have to have the other neutral person. If she was a Democrat, then you could have two Republicans, but because you have someone who
Right.
is unenrolled,
Okay, so why can't you have 2 Democrats, a Republican, and Liza as an unenrolled?
because it doesn't balance out. If you had a question,
But 2 unenrolls, a Democrat and Republican balance out? In other words, you're choosing the
Because you
unenrolled
have-
over the Democrat,
you have 1 Republican, 1 Democrat,
right?
but then you have 2 neutrals because they are unenrolled.
They're not neutral because they're unenrolled. Why are they neutral?
They're not a member of either of the other parties.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm saying. They're not a party then.
So-
Unenrolled is not a party.
But it is a political
But
designation.
you can,
You just said they're not a member of either parties. That means
So
they're
which
not a
means that,
party.
which means there's no bias towards either party.
right, if
Either
there's,
party, so unenrolled is not a party.
but
You
they
can't
can,
have it both ways.
they
You
are,
are choosing an unenrolled over a Democrat. That's what you're doing.
but we don't have a.
I mean, just
Okay.
say it
We
as
would
it is.
only
I don't
have-
mind that you're doing that. That's your choice. But don't give me the crap about it being balanced.
Okay, all right,
You're
so,
choosing an unenrolled candidate over a Democratic candidate. If that's your choice, that's fine. I can live with that. That's fine. That's fine. But it's not about balance. It's not about balance at all. 2 unenrolls and a Democrat and a Republican that you already have. Jerry? I defer to you, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
I have a motion to, for Christine Campanelli to serve as the Board of Registrar.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, discussion of disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest form as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 23B3, and determination by the Board of Selectmen, Charter Review Committee members Judy Hardigan and Robin Day. Just going to do this a little bit different. Judy and Robin, you guys both want to come up together? Yeah, that'd be great.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies. How are you? Welcome.
Happy New Year.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Happy
as
New
well.
Year.
So I want to, thank you guys both for your interest in joining Charter Review and Charter Maintenance.
Thank you.
We look forward to the hard work that you guys are going to do and present us with a newly updated charter. But before we get going with that, Doug, I'll just have you give a little bit of background as to why we have these two here with us tonight.
Thanks, Mike. And I will also want to thank Robin and Judy for stepping up to volunteer to be in the committees. We do appreciate it. And I want to be super clear. I know we all know this, but really for the benefit of the audience here, as well as folks that might be watching on TV, that they're here because they're being proactive, just to make sure that there's no real or perceived conflicts. They're doing the right thing by doing this, and I appreciate that very much. So I just want everybody to know that the reason why they're on the agenda is not because they did anything wrong or there's any accusations or concerns about anything. That's not the case. They independently reached out to the Ethics Commission to get an opinion, and we also got advice from Town Council. And the only question is, since they're town employees and the potential discussions on changing the town charter could affect departments that they work in, how does that get handled? And so there's two steps. For Robin, who works at the sewer department, she followed the rules and submitted a disclosure to the Board of Sewer Commissioners. So they have that. That's on file with them. There's no issue there. Judy does not have to file a similar document like that because Judy's not appointed by any individual or any individual board. She's elected by all the voters. So that form doesn't apply to Judy. But there's a different form which you have in your packet that's entitled by the state Disclosure of Appearance of Conflict of Interest. And what this form gets to is it's for you, the Board of Selectmen, who's the appointing authority of the Charter Review Committee and the Charter Maintenance Committee. It's up to you to decide after reading the form that they filled out and discussing with them tonight whether you feel that there's any significant financial interest that would be so substantial that it would affect the integrity of their services with the town. So it's a lot of like words just basically saying, is there a conflict with their position and discussions that might happen on the Charter Review Committee. So they can speak for themselves, but that determination is up to the board as you're the appointing authority for that committee. And so you can have your discussion now, but I just wanted to make it really clear that we appreciate what they're doing. They're just making sure they're dotting every I, crossing every T, and that everything is fully transparent.
Thank you, Doug. All right, so I'll just get started. It's going to be the same question for both of you guys. Judy, if you could just answer it first. And it's more for the public's own knowledge as to, I mean, I think most people in the community know both of you.
Of course.
But for their own knowledge, Judy, what was your specific reason for wanting to join the Charter Maintenance or Review Committee?
Having been on the rent control board for 12 years, and leaving the rent control board after 12 years, there was a definitive sign that there was help needed for the charter committee. There was, I believe, one member at the time. I was appointed on I believe, July 12th of 2021. So I've been technically on the board for almost a year and 6 months. Largely, I think the significance of the charter maintenance as well as the charter review committee speaks for itself. I mean, it's a board that is tremendously in need of empowering the town with a definitive org chart, if you will, of starting from the grassroots of what we have as an existing charter and moving forward. I think the one reason why I wanted to become part of the charter committee is I think having had 14 years experience in the public sector, but also 25 years to 30 years in the private sector, I understand both levels of organizational charts and the importance of the responding to authority as well as accountability. I think that's the most important thing, bar none, in any organization, public, private, or otherwise. That being said, having looked at the charter, it definitely needs a reworking, and that's an understatement. I would like to be able to utilize my knowledge and my experience, both as an employee of the town, to move that process forward, with the idea that it's going to be an arduous task. It's not going to be a slam dunk, we're changing the charter and isn't this wonderful. I applaud Doug for having the wherewithal to get us surrounded by a commission that is going to help us, because, again, just like the rent control board, it's a learning, it's a work in progress. It's a learning in progress. Do I think the question that was posed? I'm first of all interested why this came about a year and a half later, but I think my answers in my disclosure form speak for themselves. I do not think, honestly, that there's a conflict of interest on any level. As far as my participation on the maintenance committee. Despite the fact that I am town collector, I do not see, I of course understand the necessity for the disclosure, but I don't, there is certainly no need for any sort of taking any painstaking review to make sure that that is in place. That's a given, it's a no-brainer.
Robin, same question to you. Thank you, Judy.
Would you mind?
What was your
I'm sorry,
specific
thank you.
reason for wanting to join the Charter Maintenance and Review Committee?
Okay, so I've wanted to join a committee for a while. I really didn't have the time for that, and I recently freed up some time. And honestly, first I thought I was going to try for the Finance Committee, but then I saw this, and this is actually a better fit for me. When I first worked for the town, I actually worked with Judy, and I made an org chart just so I could understand how everything laid out, how it worked. And I have a lot of experience with editing and language and making things more concise, and I can see just by looking through the charter that could be helpful. I have a lot of experience outside of government and now inside, and I just think I could be helpful with that process, and I'm really interested to learn more from my peers too, to make it work for the citizens. So I'm interested in that.
Doug, before you move on, can you just give a quick background as to why specifically, just to kind of speak to, Judy having, posed the question as to why a year and a half later of her being on this committee was this brought up at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that, the committee was dormant for that year and a half. I mean, you were 50% of the entire membership, I think, at that time. So as it was getting reactivated, and as Robin was pursuing her opinion from the Ethics Commission, and once we got that information back, we realized, okay, we have to be consistent with town employees on the committee. So that's really how it came up later. Once it was fully formed and we got the ethics opinion, we're just following their guidance.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I actually do. First of all, I would like to thank both of you for being willing. As we all know, this is very important to the town moving forward. It's one of the most important things that that we need. So thank you very much, and I do question in terms of being involved with the organization and the creation of the town charter moving forward. If there was a discussion about your particular either role or your particular department, is that something that you feel that there could be a conflict? And then, if so, is that something that you'd be willing to recuse yourself from just that particular department or role? I'm just trying to bring that up for conversation.
That's fair. Well,
Okay, I'll go first.
you can, yes.
So I have thought about that. I think there are probably some scenarios where if I was asked my opinion and something were to change, that I might benefit from that. I think that I'm able to recognize that, and I'm more than willing to recuse myself from that situation. And probably I would reach out to the Ethics Commission just so I would have a well-grounded decision to step back. I can't think of all of them, but I'm sure that if something does come up that I thought I would benefit from, that I would definitely disclose that and recuse myself.
Having spoken at length with the Ethics Commission and a number of attorneys, when you call, you have the attorney of the day. I ran that by them a number of times. There's the I don't want to say misconception, but there's the confusion of whether or not an elected official is or an appointed official is an employee of the town. So there's a gray area there. But in answer to your question, Tiffany, I'm going to just quote from what I put on my disclosure. I consider myself to be an active and productive member of the organization. In my professional capacity as town collector, I do not consider my involvement on the Charter Committee as being a conflict. I am non-biased and impartial and can add value to the discussions as they relate to our form of government in the town of Rockland. In fact, my 12 years of experience with the town will be beneficial and valuable. That being said, if there were ever a matter of any sort of question of potential impropriety as it related to financial gain, anything that crossed the lines of ethics, I would certainly, absolutely cross that T and dot that I and make sure that I would appropriately either recuse myself or take measures. Now, that being said, I also want to be a productive member of the committee. So are there going to be times when there potentially may be my involvement that does intersect? For instance, just to throw things out there, there's talk of treasurer-collector combination. There's treasurer appointed versus elected. Does that fall within my realm? Yes. Does it benefit me personally? No, I don't think so. But that's not for me to decide. That's for the Ethics Commission to decide. So that being said, I would probably take great measures to make sure that those lines and boundaries were not crossed if in fact I had to recuse myself from that kind of a situation. It's been a very thought-provoking process. And that being said, I also don't want that to be problematic as a member of the board, in that I'm recusing myself more than voting, because that's not doing the Charter Maintenance Committee any good either. So it's going to have to be a really, really fine balance, and I definitely think it's doable. I know it's doable, and for me, I know it's doable. But hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
Donna, any questions?
No.
You good? Yep. Okay, so, thank you, both of you. Again,
Thank you.
like I said, I appreciate, obviously, your willingness to join this committee.
Mike, could I make one comment? I
Yeah.
don't mean to
Go ahead.
I just want to thank them again, because it's always awkward coming to these meetings, and speaking about this stuff, so I appreciate it. Not to minimize anything that we've talked about, because that's not my intent, but just as a reminder, it's important to remember that Robin and Judy won't be making any decisions, right? They're just two members of a 9-member committee that's going to provide recommendations to you. Ultimately, you, the board, will decide what gets put on the warrant, and then ultimately it's up to the voters that actually decide. So I know we know that, but I just wanted to kind of say it out loud, because we all get so focused on some of the details sometimes that they don't have the ability to, wouldn't have an ability to make a decision unilaterally on their own. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
So I'm satisfied, having spoken to both Judy and Robin just now, that I feel comfortable that I don't believe that there is a conflict of interest, and that both of you are fully willing to reach out to the ethics board if something comes up. Anybody else, any thoughts, or Tiffany, do you have anything else?
No, I agree.
Okay, so I guess I'll entertain a motion to, I guess how would we say this?
Accept their
Yeah, I'd say accept the disclosure. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the disclosure of both Judy Hardigan and Robin Day.
Motion?
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, 265 Plain Street construction update. Doug?
I'll kick it off. Thanks, Mike. So we've been talking about this property and the state of this property for a long time now. And I've received a lot of concerns from residents in the neighborhood. I know one of which is in the audience tonight, and was hoping to give some comments, just particularly as it relates to the slow pace of improvements. It really is blight in the neighborhood. I have had a number of conversations with Mr. Harris, who's the new owner and developer, who is in the audience with us tonight. And at your request, Mike, I did ask him to attend as a formal agenda item so the board can get an update on exactly what his plans are for improving the property, and most importantly, when, as it's a real concern for the neighborhood. So that's my very general summary. In your packet, I have a couple of photos that I took on Thursday of last week, as well as a building permit application that was just filed with the building inspector.
Okay. Mr. Harris, you want to come forward? Come on up. Oh, Mr. Harris first. Bob, we'll go with Mr. Harris first. You're good. Welcome. So the property that we're specifically talking about is the old Kelleher Oil Brothers.
Turn this off.
Go for it. Hit the S button. There you go.
So the property we're specifically talking about is the old Kelleher Oil Brothers location on Plain Street, which had obviously a fire at some point over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years now, 5 years now. Yeah, it's been a while. So, so if you want to just tell us a little bit, I guess, about yourself first, and then go specifically into what your plans are with the property itself.
So I bought the property fall of '21, October, November of '21. If you recall, there were trucks, there were trailers, there were drums, oil tanks. So we've been cleaning it up, probably not as fast as the town would like to, but just recently pulled a permit, and that was after probably a half a dozen meetings with the building inspector from what he wanted. I was kind of on the fence what I was going to do, either tear the building down or rebuild it. So after talking to different people, I decided I really want to, I've been in the oil business for a long time, and this was an opportunity with the, the location and the customer base and stuff like that to grow my business. My son is starting to get in the business now. So Mr. Rubel and I had many meetings, told me what he wanted, structural engineers and, GCs and so forth. And just in the past couple of weeks, had a quick conversation with your town administrator as well, told him what my plans were. He gave me a verbal permit about a week ago to start rebuilding, and that's what we've started. So what's gonna happen, we have to clean up the area a little more. We're gonna have masons come in, shore up the walls with rebar, concrete, and put a roof on it. My intention is to make that look nice. I do not, it's not gonna help my business to have a mess the way it is. It's, it's been a year, I probably, but I have other things going on as well, trying to maintain my business, so, but now, Mr. Rubel said, we have to put this on the fast track, and that's fine, and I will do that, so, there'll be a framing crew in there, I wish it wasn't the winter right now, so, because it's hard to say, if we get 2 feet of snow, things would change, but a framing crew is scheduled to come in, and probably 2 months, it's gonna look a lot different.
So barring
And
epic snowfalls, what are your projections for
in the spring, Yes,
springtime, the
yeah.
project will be completed?
Right.
And what about the oil tanks themselves?
I want to use
You're
those as well.
planning on
Yeah,
using?
been in touch with the chief and had a structural engineer look at those as well. And so I want to bring those back online.
Okay, so I'm going to give Mr. Johnson an opportunity to share some of
Sure.
his concerns, seeing as Mr. Johnson is the one that brought this issue to my
Sure.
attention in the first place. So,
Do you
so
want me to-
Bob, by all means, you can speak from where you are. I think you got a deep enough voice that I think they can pick you up on the mics.
It's been almost 5 years, July 23rd, I think it'll be 5 years since that happened. We've been looking at that mess for almost 5 years, okay? I don't know what's worse, the building or the oil tanks, but if you look at, the senior center next door, they're looking at it, walking the trails, looking at it, all the apartments, Cloudman Building, apartments on Grove Street, they're all in view of this mess, coming out of the golf course that's right in front of you. I look at it every day when I go by. It's disgusting. And it seems like there's just nothing happening. My daughter walks down the walking trail. She said if the breeze is blowing in the right direction, you can smell fuel oil. So I don't know if those tanks vent themselves or where it's coming from, but if that's leaking, there's a brook right behind it, goes right under Reed's Pond.
Mr. Harris, can you speak to that?
They're not leaking.
Any
They're not
21E
leaking. They haven't-
concerns on the property?
No, no,
Have you had a 21E study?
I haven't, no,
Any
no.
plans to do one?
no. Only if I sell it.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Fulton, I know you're also a resident. Anything you'd like to add to this? Any concerns?
No, I mean, I would support Bob. I'm glad to hear that, you're taking some actions on it. I am kind of curious, I realize it may not be required, but I am kind of curious as with the fact that there are indeed, water flowing, groundwater, and have had some experience with family members who had to deal with that, and how it can definitely unknowingly seep into that whole, situation. So, I don't know if it's not required, but would love to, have some assurance that at least some studies have been done by the structural engineers that maybe you hired as far as the tanks themselves and so forth, that there haven't been any leaks, both ones that are up on the stilts as well as perhaps any ones that are, either sitting on cement or whatever it is might be down towards the ground level.
Does that sound amendable?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah, no, I want to be a good neighbor. I don't know if I've spoken to anyone. I've spoken to somebody on the phone. I just don't know. It might have been, was it you, Mr. Johnson? Someone that's been across the street for many, many years, so.
So obviously, Mr. Harris, I know this property, you've only acquired it back in the fall of '21, and the problems that occurred prior to that are not your problems. That, the time delays, the 5 years isn't your clock. That wasn't your time clock. But your time started in the fall of '21, and I understand obviously it was a difficult time with COVID and with the price increases on a lot of construction and not having really an idea of what you were going to do with the property. However, now that you have, kind of formally, suggested or mentioned that you will have considerable improvements come spring, it's something I think I'd like to have you back.
Absolutely.
Say April.
Absolutely,
maybe our
happy
first
to.
April meeting,
Yep.
and you can kind of give us an update. In the meantime, I know these two gentlemen pretty well. and there'll be kind of community watchdogs, and I'm sure I'll hear anything if there's.
And they can call me
any
too.
kind of concerns. And
no
yeah, if you guys could
problem.
exchange some of that information,
Absolutely.
that'd be
No
great.
problem. You know, this is not the only property we have,
Sure.
and so the other one is, I think, is an asset to this town, so that's what this one's gonna look like.
Mike, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Those tanks have got to be 100 years old. I'm taking a guess at it, but it's got to be close. Like, remember, I moved to Rockland in '65, and they were old looking then. So, you've got to be 100 years old. And they haven't been used in 30, 40 years maybe, since they've even been used. So if you plan on building a new building there, you gonna leave the tanks there, or what are we doing?
We're
I'm
hoping to
gonna-
use the tanks.
You're gonna use them, and if I have to replace them, I will replace them.
Jack, I see you hand.
Yeah, John Ward, 22 Nevin Circle. I'm just curious as to what type of business is going to go in there with Mr. Harris. Is it going to be retained as an oil
Yeah.
and propane business?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I've been
yeah.
doing my whole adult life.
Yeah, he said at the very beginning that he's been in the oil business for a while. I don't know if you could hear it, because I think the AC was still going, or the heat, whatever it was, but.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so, Mr. Harris, welcome to Rockland. Obviously, you've been here now for a while, but, I look forward to seeing your end product. And before you leave, at some point, if you guys want to just take a trip into the hallway with them and maybe exchange your phone numbers with
Yeah,
them, so you guys
happy
can keep talking to them and keep the conversation going. All right?
I didn't hear this, Mike, I'm sorry.
You want to just take a walk into the hallway with them and give him your phone number, and you can get his, and that way you can hold him accountable. Keep talking to him anyway if you have any questions, concerns going forward. All right? And we'll have you back in the spring.
I just want to see this cleaned up.
I hear
I
you.
don't-
I'm with you.
I
I'm with
don't
you.
blame But
Yep.
you have to admit, it's a lot cleaner than it was a year ago.
I wouldn't say that, you just took the top off that building, it looks worse.
Oh,
It does, I mean,
trucks,
Yeah.
trailers, all right, well, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your
All right.
time.
Thanks.
All right? If you guys want to just get his information in the hall, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda, other new business not reasonably anticipated. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I'm not sure, right in the corner, well, just next to Bob. Over on Main Street.
Got it. Thank you very much.
all right, thanks for your help, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. No other business.
Okay, perfect. All right, next on the agenda, under old business, FY '24 budget update.
Yeah, this will be quick, Mike. I wanted to follow up on something that you actually raised at the last meeting regarding the timing of when the governor will submit their budget. And just as you alluded to, that is in fact the case. So I printed from the mass.gov site, it talks about the standard time frame for when the governor submits his or her proposed budget, which is the fourth Wednesday in January. That's what we're all familiar with. But as you alluded to, Mike, in the event of a new term, which is what we have now, the new governor, they get up to an additional 5 weeks. So we're essentially looking at an entire month,
Under the governor.
likely, that's going to sort of delay our whole budget process, and not just us, but, the whole state. I know the MMA has been, strongly urging the governor-elect, the new governor, to, submit it earlier than that. They don't have to wait that extra 5 weeks. But I think the intent is you have a new administration, new staff, they need time to get up to speed on things. So I think essentially we will likely see a delay, and, we'll just sort of push things off accordingly. So we'll just have to act a little bit quicker, starting in March.
Okay.
And then my only other update was I did put in your packet, I received all the capital requests from all the department heads. I put it in your packet here. You can see it totals a little over $4.2 million. So we obviously will most likely not be able to afford every single one of these. I haven't reviewed these. They haven't really been vetted. These are just exactly as requested. There are some, there's some common things on here. It might be some vehicles, some equipment. But then there's some significant paving work from the highway department, one of which is the $200,000 we've been doing each year for the last couple of years. That was because we didn't have the total $600,000 to do the Beach Street curbing and sidewalk upgrades. There's some other things that we should talk about that deal with engineering, paying for engineering to help leverage big state grants. And we can talk about whether this is the best way to leverage that, or if there's other opportunities, we can get into that later. You'll see there's a number of new departments. Normally, the school department doesn't have a ton of capital requests. Normally, it's just the van leases and the technology. You'll see this year they do have a number of larger ones, both for technology upgrades, for security, so that's to make all the schools on the same compatible type of security system. Also, some improvements at the Eston School, both within the walls of the building, as well as for the playground. And you know, the work clearly needs to be done. There's no dispute of that. So that's it. I wanted to share with you this preliminary list. We'll go through the normal process where we'll send all this to the capital planning committee, and then each of the department heads will go to capital planning and discuss it. It'll get scored and placed on the capital plan if it's $50,000 or more, and then we'll go from there. That's all I have for a budget update tonight.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Other old business not reasonably anticipated?
I have none.
None, okay. Town administrators report and correspondence, Doug.
Sure, this will be quick. Couple of things I've mentioned before, but I just wanted to reiterate. Again, the same night as our next meeting on January 17th, there'll be a Zoning Board of Appeals special permit public hearing for the proposed fire station project. And I know there were some questions from some folks in the community questioning why they received abutters notices for a project that voters hadn't approved yet. And I just wanted to make crystal clear, this project has not been approved yet. Voters will have the ultimate say on whether this project goes forward. We leveraged federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to pay for a feasibility study for this project, so we'd have enough detail to bring before voters. And we thought that a good milestone to have achieved before we go to voters would be a Zoning Board of Appeals special permit, so we know that that use will be appropriate at that site. So that hearing is on the 17th. I believe they, at 6:30, and I believe they meet by Zoom, so certainly anybody that's interested, I'd encourage them to listen to that or participate in that hearing. We also just put together today a page on the fire department's webpage on the town website that's dedicated specifically for this proposed new fire station project. And the intent there is just to have everything on one page. So there's documents, videos, all the information from this ZBA special permit. We're just going to try to put everything in one place to make it easier for people to get information. And then lastly, relating to the fire department, as all departments do in town, they're always actively searching out grant opportunities. They just received another grant for fire safety education efforts, both to help educate children in Rockland as well as the senior population. So we applaud their efforts at that outreach and securing grants to pay for it. Also, over the last couple weeks, still continuing to work on the recreation and community center feasibility study. And then lastly, I know I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it one more time just because of the date. I want to congratulate Police Officer Sue Llewellyn. Her retirement walkout ceremony at the station will be this Thursday, January 5th at 3 p.m. And again, I just want to congratulate her on a distinguished career. That's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Selectmen's comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectman Shortall.
I will follow up on your comment that I think Sue Llewellyn has served the town very well, and congratulations on her retirement. I hope she enjoys it. And I hope everybody has a great new year.
Thank you, Donna. Selectman Edom.
Happy New Year. Once again, congratulations, Sue Llewellyn, on your distinguished career, and I wish you many exciting new adventures. Today is a very, very exciting day for Rockland. The students of Memorial Park actually had their first day at Phelps Elementary School. And it is just, I want to congratulate all those who've worked so hard for our kids to have such a beautiful school. So Memorial Park students get to start this season, and then in the fall, you know, the other elementary schools will join them. But I walked my daughter up this morning, and it's beautiful, and I'm thrilled that she and all of the kids of Rockland have such a great resource. So congratulations, and thank you to all who've worked so hard for today to happen. And once again, Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, I'll reiterate what my colleague said. Sue Llewellyn, an amazing career. I hate to see her leave at such a, I don't know, maybe it's just me, it seems like she's, well before retirement age, but, she's able to do it, so bless her for it. I mean, I hope she realizes that she's just gonna have a lot more time to spend with John, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but they look like they're enjoying themselves to this point. But Susie, great job, as always. Appreciate all your support over the years, and wish you well in retirement. Also, I'll say something first, and then I'll follow up with something that I'm doing that kind of contradicts exactly what I'm about to say. Everybody just kind of keep an eye out for each other. There's been a lot of illness going around. Obviously, COVID again. The flu is going around. RSV is something going around as well. So, there may be some possibilities that our meetings may not be in this form, in this manner, live, but we will, continue to do our business for the town. I want to thank Doug and the town hall staff and all the departments really, because they have been dealing with a lot of illness over the last, few weeks to a month. And I think every one of us up here has been affected by this over the last, month or so anyway. But with that said, I'm kind of bringing back something that I was doing before COVID, before we even knew what the word was, or before existed in our everyday conversations. But next Tuesday, the 10th at 10 a.m., I'll be doing office hours up here at Town Hall, here in the Selectmen's Room. I'll be up here from 10 to 12. I didn't get a lot of residents showing up back when I was doing it prior to COVID. I did have a few, but I've had a lot of people comment and make suggestions online, and I thought this was a great opportunity for them to meet face to face, and we can have those conversations, and we can explain some of the things that we're doing in a more professional manner, in a one-on-one setting. So I'll be here in the Selectmen's Room next Tuesday, January 10th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Roll call vote. Selectperson Needham.
Yes.
Selectperson Shortall.
Yes.
And myself. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Good night.